Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and today on Light Talk, we are talking about tie-ins, our favorite spaces, when to walk off a gig, and how can lighting designers make this a better world.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
That was stretchy.
Ed McMahon. That's the Ed McMahon.
Oh, that's the Ed McMahon version of it.
Our listeners saying, who the hell is Ed McMahon?
That's true. Yeah, we're so different generation.
For the people who don't know, Ed McMahon was Johnny Carson's sidekick. Anyway, welcome everyone to episode 175, deep into our fourth season. So we have some exciting guests coming up, don't we, Steve?
Yes, we do have some interesting people coming up. We have Jane Childs. I think a lot of people in our industry, particularly in education, know Jane. We have Ian Peacock that we've got lined up. We've tapped into high-end systems. Paul Hancock has agreed to come on and do his thing. We've reached out to Clay Paki. George Masick will be on, and Hal Binkley is going to be on. So we have those people lined up, and we're kind of in the pipeline for 3 or 4 more people. So it's going to be, instead of maybe our normal 12 people a year, we might push that to 15. Who knows? I've got a call into Las Vegas right now. I don't know that if he's going to do it, but O.J. Simpson is interested.
I thought you were talking about Mike Tyson. There's a guy, Mike Tyson, on the show.
Mike Tyson. Did you see his latest commercial?
No.
Mike Tyson, how much money did he have that was stolen from him?
Yeah.
He's
like
right
Don
up there
King.
But anyhow, I think we've got some really great people and a couple surprise guests coming in. So stay tuned and get those questions coming to us. And, if you have an idea about someone you'd like us to talk to, drop us an email.
Sure. I can't wait to talk to George Masick from Clay Paki because I know that they're working on that Payki Paki Pizza Spinner. Yeah, I really do. And I hope we're not cheated out of royalties on that because we should have patented that damn idea.
Well, I told you. Exactly. That was a very inspired kind of light.
It's an inspired idea. It's a light that actually spins the pizza.
Spins the dough.
Then the light above it actually drops the sauce and cheese on it.
Yep. And then you heat it up with an incandescent style,
Right. With arc style. We'll throw it onto either a BMFL or something like that. And then we'll heat it up. And then it drops again to the next Clay Paki.
Doesn't have a drone operated delivery system.
No. It spins it like a Frisbee to the tech table.
Oh.
Now, this was the problem that the company was having, was perfecting that part of it.
The landing.
I
think the landing could be an issue. That was an issue with the Apollo mission, too, the landing.
The landing's always the worst.
Yeah, it's that sudden stop. That the getting it there is easy. It's the sudden stopping. It's still a problem when you fly.
When you fly, that's the most difficult thing to learn is the landing. I actually have a pilot's license. I don't know if you guys know this. Yes, I have a pilot's license, and anyone can lift an airplane off the ground. It's just you get to a certain speed, you pull back on the wheel, boop, you're up.
It's putting it back down.
It's getting back down safely.
Like the pizza.
Anyway, it's enough of our pizza spinner thing.
I just want to say I do have some sad news that I need to share. I think our friend Zach Borove, I'm going to have to pull his interviews down off of our website. Well,
what?
He's our bass player.
Yes.
Last night, my daughter came home at 2 a.m. Now, she's about to leave for grad school. I mean, she's an adult, but she came home at 2 a.m. and she had a bass with her. She had bought a Fender bass. And I don't know where I went wrong, but now in our apartment over the garage, I hear a constant thump, 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 thump. And apparently she had been secretly taking bass lessons. So now she, Zach, I think he's a bad influence. I think he's a bad influence on children and young adults across the nation with his evil bass playing ways.
But here's the thing. Was it a Fender Precision bass or was it a jazz bass?
It's the best of both worlds. It's a PJ bass.
Well, there you go. Hey, PJ.
Right.
That's a little bit of both. I forgot they made that model.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think it's a nice, it's an inexpensive, nice little beginner's bass. And we'll see.
Does she make the stretches? Does she got big hands?
No, I don't think she has big hands.
I wanted to play the bass, but my hands are not big enough to play the bass.
She also does not have
it.
hobbit feet. So just no big-handed hobbit feet daughter here.
Okay, enough of Steve's daughter's hand size and feet size. So that's great, Gezeigezin, as they say. And I don't know what the hell that means. It's some Yiddish term, like go with peace.
Good luck.
But they do have basses that you don't need such big hands for. Like
Is that true?
The old Hofner Pete Beatles bass, the one that Paul McCartney has.
That was a Rickenbacker. Wasn't that a Rickenbacker?
Well, Paul McCartney played Rickenbackers later.
Oh.
Okay, starting with Magical Mystery Tour, he played Rickenbackers. But anyway, that's a whole other story. We'll get Zach on to talk about
Well,
that.
heck, let's get Paul on. Let's go right to the source.
Let's get Paul
There
McCartney.
we go.
There
Now
we
that
go.
would be an interview grab. Hey, wait a minute. You know what? We had Mark Brickman. I'm sure Mark has Paul's contact information. Maybe I should try that.
Yeah, why don't you call Mark and bother him on a Sunday morning? He wants to-
It worked last time.
Wow. I just saw that LDI has canceled, and they are announcing that they're going to be back next year in November 19th through the 21st. Man, what a blow. What a blow to lose LDI. It's the only responsible decision they could have made. I know it was hard and it was painful and it's economically devastating, but they had to put the safety of themselves and our industry in front of doing this trade show. The thing that is also very difficult about LDI canceling this year is that means, what do they have? 16, 17,000 people who attend LDI every year. That's a lot of hotel rooms that are going to be empty. And we also have to consider our brothers and sisters in Las Vegas who make their living working at the convention center. That's just another show they've lost. So this is pretty devastating, but it was the only thing they could have done.
Well, that really is too bad. Certainly going to miss all my friends and seeing everybody, all of our LDI folks and our annual ritual. It's really a bummer.
So let's get started. Steve has our first question.
Bobby, with an IE. Bobby in Ohio writes, I'm going to do my first main power tie-in next week down at the club. I'm bringing some extra dimmers. Can you go over the steps? I think it's a Delta service.
You mean the airline? Delta Airline has this new service?
Oh, okay, Bobby. I feel like I need to wag a finger at you. There are all kinds of things in that question. First, down at the club, I'm bringing some dimmers. Can you go over the steps? And I think it's Delta. Oh my God. Have you seen The Perfect Storm? Watch that movie. I mean, God bless you. If you have to ask this question, you're not qualified to do a tie-in. Don't do it. Don't do it. Go ahead and just suck it up and get a union stagehand to come in and do the tie-in and the disconnect for you. The thing that's got me a little scared here is also that phrase, I think it's a Delta service. There's two types of services, right? There's Y and Delta. And it's not unusual to see Delta. I could see that in a club somewhere where they've got kind of repowering induction motors and things like that. But I think this can go south really fast for you. You probably, you're going to need three-phase power, I'm sure, for your dimmers. Or you're going to have them configured for single-phase power from the rental house, or if you have them, you should know what you have. Three-phase power, right? You've got three legs there, usually called an ABC, And if you take that and you measure across the legs, you're going to get 240. And then if you go from individual leg to your neutral, you'll get 110, 120 volts. Delta is completely different from that. A Delta service, and I'm even putting a disclaimer on this. I'm not an electrician, but the few times I've seen people tie into a Delta service, and actually when I've tied into a Delta service with a three-phase dimming system, I've had to tie two legs together. And then you have all kinds of balancing issues across your dimmer rack. So that's another reason you want to be a little careful here going into this. So if you are going Delta down at the club, the thing you have to keep in mind about your legs is that if you measure the AB leg, and then you measure the BC leg, and then you measure the CA leg, all of those are 240 volts. That means A to neutral or C to neutral will be 120 volts, and the B to neutral is going to be 280 volts. So there's some real problems there. Delta, I don't know. I'm worried about you down there. The other thing, if this really is kind of one of your first times of doing it, Spike, the world's oldest stagehand, was doing a tie-in for me. And it was just a sloppy tie-in because he had seniority over everybody. He could do anything he wanted to do, so he wanted to do the tie-in that day. Normally he was the forklift driver, so that tells you something right there.
He wanted to burn the theater down that day. That's what he really wanted to do. Oh
man, I walked by Spike and he is just shoving the tails into the lugs of this disconnect, and as you can imagine, a lot of the wires aren't going into the lug. It's just like little hair everywhere, and he doesn't really care. And I said, I don't know if I'd do it that way. And, he kind of politely told me where to go. And I took a big step back, and he went, watch this. And he had his head down there pretty close, 3 or 4 feet away. And he turned the main power on. And it kind of sounded like maybe a 38 going off because all those wires became squibs. Now, after Spike went home and changed his pants and came back, if you took a look at that tie-in, it was beautiful because everything that got vaporized made it look like the most professional tie-in known to man. So, if you're going to do this tie-in, let me just say one thing to you. Tie in your ground first.
Right.
Do not tie your hots in first. And people say, well, it doesn't matter. The power's turned off. And I guess it doesn't maybe, but what it matters is getting into a safe way of working. So tie your ground in first, then tie your neutral, and then tie your hots in. And then when you disconnect at the end of the evening, simply reverse that. Undo your hots first, then your neutral, then your ground last. Also, a little fun fact, if you're messing around and you are also providing motor power, keep in mind that many rigging motors are 3-phase, and they're using 3 hots and no neutral. So you may have a motor running backwards. In that case, just swap out any 2 hots, and the motor will run in the other direction.
Well, as you probably all have guessed by now, they kept me far away from any sort of power or electrical things. To give you an idea, I'm doing a little home remodel where I'm changing out my bathroom sconces, and I turned off the switch and I pulled the sconces out of the wall. And I see all these wires. I don't know what the hell these things are. So I start pulling wires out, right? And then I say, well, okay, I've got a bunch of bare wires now, and what am I going to do? Because the sconces don't come in until tomorrow. And so I just took some clear packing tape and
oh no, you don't have any wire nuts or something? Or
what's a wire nut?
Oh boy.
Anyway, so they keep me far away from these things for good reason. Claudia in South Carolina asks, with everything going on these days, what role does the artist designer have in society? I question my contributions to a better world as a lighting designer. All right, so you actually have a lot. And if you think of yourself just as a lighting designer, then you're just limiting yourself and you're limiting your contributions to society. Because, first of all, when you're working on a show, whether you're an actor, director, designer, stagehand, doesn't matter. You're all part of one creative, artistic statement. Since its inception, theater has been a political tool. You can just go back into history and look at all the shows that made a very strong political statement or a statement about society that actually causes people to take note. Just recently, we have Hamilton. That's a very political show. Not because it's about politics, but it's about more. It's about society. And it's about what we live and die for and what is right and what is wrong. You can look at the original Frank Wiedekind's Spring Awakening. It was written in 1893, I believe, and it had a very strong statement against the political nature and the control of education and the control of information. I'm working on this show now about Chernobyl, which is also about truth, and about how people keep the truth from you. We're living through it now. So getting back to the question, how can you make a difference, is you involve yourself in shows that you believe in, that are going to make a difference. Now, if you're doing like just Neil Simon comedies and things like that, I can understand there's very little social value to that, except for entertainment. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with entertainment. But most theater is political in one way or another. And when you decide to do that show, you are part of that political message, whether you're just doing lights or you're a wardrobe person. You are part of it. So yes, you actually do have a lot of power.
I think theater is important for the same reason that all art is important. I think that theater and art, it's our way. It's a means of reflecting ourselves on society. And Bertolt Brecht had that really great quote that I looked up. And it is, art is not a mirror to hold up to reality, but a hammer in which to shape it.
That's a good quote. I had not heard that one before. I agree with what you guys are saying completely. And I was just thinking, as David was talking about, self versus selfless. It's sort of, if you're in it for you, you can be in it for you, but I think there's a larger reason that you're in it. You're serving a larger purpose. And when you take the historical view of it, which David was saying, theater has made an impact on our world over the centuries by making a difference, bringing the truth out, or letting us look at the truth. And I thought of this, when you look at a society from the past, what's left? Of a society that's no longer there. Basically, first to learn about a past society is we look at the art, and it's art and architecture are the two things that are the remnants of a society, the things that are held precious, right? There's an old joke that maybe 1,000 years from now, people will excavate Florida and Southern California, and they'll say there was this place where people flocked from all over the world, and they worshipped this little mouse. You know what I mean?
We can tell from all the polyester pants we're finding.
Right. So, but I do think that, what do we know about the Greeks? We know their plays. We know their architecture. We know the runes. We know what writings we found. We know this. I mean, that's the essence of our society, right? I think about Google, I think about Facebook, and I think about these servers these server farms they built in really cold places in the middle of nowhere to bring power. And 1,000 years from now, somebody's going to go to those hard drives and learn all about us, right? But that's maybe a lot of noise. But the stuff that's really essence, the diamonds of the culture, are the art and architecture and literature that are left behind. That's how we know about England in Shakespeare's time. And so I think I'm not trying to over-romanticize it, but I think there's some truth in that. And if you're having doubts, maybe it's a recommitment, as Steve says, to the type of work that you choose to do.
Well, here's the deal. Our power as theater artists rests in our message to the audience. All right. We are actually very fortunate because we have an audience that's actually watching and listening what we're doing and the statements we're making. I would argue that as a theater artist, as a lighting designer, even as a stagehand, it really doesn't matter. But as a member of that company presenting that show, you have more power socially than a fine artist. Because a fine artist, people are going to have to go into the museum to look at their work, or they're going to have to look it up on the internet. But in the theater, it's broadcast to hundreds of thousands of people, every week. So I would argue that you actually have a lot more power.
I don't know. I think if you looked up the demographics, I think more people go to museums than go to the live theater.
Yeah, but do they actually look at that one particular painting when they go to museums?
Well, I think that's another point, that there is a thing called museum fatigue where you can be overwhelmed.
Right, people just go right through it.
Right.
But that's the thing. And if you're in an audience, you're a captive member. you're sitting in there, and unless you're going to be looking at your cell phone, which people don't look kindly upon during it, you are listening and watching the show.
Yeah, if you get them in the door, that's true.
And this goes through film, obviously, ballet. I mean, any sort of live performance arts that could be televised and could be done in mass media that we've been talking about for the past few weeks.
William in Maine asks, as a lighting designer, which space do you prefer? Proscenium, thrust, or arena? And why so? Well, boy, you're going to make me pick. So you twisted my arm, and I will have to pick. And I don't know if this is because more of my work has been in proscenium, but that is my favorite to work in. And I think the reason that I like that is because of the distance and the ability to work in that scale and the ability to create the illusion. It's sort of like magic. Because you have that distance, you can sort of create more magic in the way that the viewer sees the show. And you can hide a lot of equipment, and you can sort of, it's sort of more of a magical kind of space. Thrust is probably number 2 for me. And I think the thing about thrust that's cool is details, right? The closeness and the way in which you have that tighter relationship, with the audience. And then I think arena is even beyond that, the details, but there's a level of intimacy in the arena, both between what you're watching and the way you watch the performers and the way you're watching other audience members, because everybody sees everybody else. So there's sort of a communal intimacy about that. But for lighting, for me, all are challenging and all are interesting. I've worked in all 3 styles, and I also think it depends on the show. Like some shows seem to sort of, like this Oklahoma, certain shows are sort of designed, conceptualized for a proscenium with the machinery that the proscenium has. And some shows will just play better in a more intimate environment. I think that's really a directorial choice. But I think from a lighting perspective, if I had to pick where I think I can exploit the uses of theatrical lighting to their ultimate, I really do like the proscenium. What about you guys?
Something, I prefer thruster arena because I'm looking at the total experience as a theater, as a total communal theater artist, in the sense of what's more important. And I feel that just the nature of the shape of the space and the intimacy of the actor to the audience tells the story a lot better. And yes, it is more difficult to light in a thrust or an arena. But that's the theater I learned how to light in. So after doing like 20 shows in the thrust theater, and I got to do a proscenium, I said, this is a piece of cake. Doing a proscenium theater, I don't have to worry about blinding the audience. I can use shin kickers and things like that.
Yeah, it is easier.
But just look at the overall theater experience. And what we were talking about earlier about the message. I believe the more intimate spaces like the thruster arena is what I prefer.
I'm going to go with thrust, and the reason is that the actor becomes a really important part of the lighting design, as does the director. If I go into a proscenium space, then generally what I'm dealing with is a presentation, a line of people across the stage. Not always, but it's kind of face forward. If I'm working in a thrust, then that director is making bolder choices. He or she's having to think about sight lines, and all of a sudden, they're just, if nothing else, the action takes place in a triangle. So people are turning in and out of different types of light. So the actor becomes, the mobility of the actor and the ability to light, from 3 perspectives becomes kind of an interesting chore. So I think thrust is where I like.
You are listening to Light Talk, and Light Talk is sponsored by
Pet Sweat of Japan. How many times have you wrapped up a late night 10 out of 12, began the drive home, and thought, wow, I am starved? If you're like me, plenty. But as we all know, the food pickings are pretty slim after midnight. That's why Pet Sweat of Japan offers the Lampy Yum Yum Box. Unlike the traditional bento box of rice, meat, and pickled vegetables, the Lampy Yum Yum Box is targeted to the working men and women of America. The Lampy Yum Yum Box is crafted with care and is a complete meal with a variety of tastes, textures, and food groups from the United States. 3 new regional boxes are available on Amazon now and include the Back East Gutbuster, Scrapple, grits, deep fried butter and root beer. I dare you to eat it. The Midwest Puppy Chow, olive loaf, spray cheese, and Jell-O salad. And you don't need a pop because you have public bubblers, don't you know? More fun than a sack of monkeys in your pocket. And the California Dreaming, Spam musabi, dried kudzu pizzle soup, and a shot of wheatgrass. Dress up as Oscar Wilde and sing Noel Coward songs all the way home. You never have to go to Applebee's drive-thru for fine cuisine again. Ask about our COVID special. If you order all 3 Lampy Yum Yum boxes, then Pet Sweat of Japan will toss in a tasty 6-pack of cow piss.
Oh!
You remember cow piss,
Cow
that
piss.
refreshing beverage that is right for any time, day or night. Pet Sweat of Japan. Always something good in the kitchen.
What the hell is Scrapple?
So Scrapple, I do know what Scrapple is.
What is it?
When I lived in Pennsylvania, it's served there. I don't know where else it might be served. And what I was told is it's
all the bad stuff, right?
yeah, it's sort of the part of the cow that's sort of unmentionable, like part of the intestinal tract that gets ground up. It's like the really stuff that you would throw away. Let's see if the internet could actually tell us.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's move on.
It's pretty.
I'm surprised, Steve. I'm surprised that the Francheezie didn't make your Midwest cuisine.
Well,
Because the Francheezie is pretty big. It's pretty big. You guys know what a Francheezie is, right?
I don't.
I have to say I don't know.
It is a giant fatty sausage that is how you put like American cheese in the middle of it. You wrap it in bacon and then you deep fry it. Very popular in Chicago.
If we want to do a Lampy Yum Yum box for our northern neighbors in Canada, I think one of the meat would probably be the jellied moose nose.
Okay, here you go. Just for fun. So it is a Pennsylvania classic since 1863, though the company's been in Wisconsin owned since 1985. It features pork stock, pork skins, cornmeal, wheat flour, pork hearts, pork livers, pork tongues, salt, and spices. And it's like this. It's the organs. It's ground up organs. It's like what they usually throw away.
I got 3 words. Lampy Yum Yum Box. It's perfect. That is perfect.
That's fine. That's more than 3 words. Lampy Yum. That's 4 words.
And it's funny because I was looking at Francheezie to get my facts straight, and there's a rock band named Francheezie. So there you go.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Hey, the sound of those crazy ducks in the background tell us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is about, that's sort of like a tail off from our last show where we were talking about some horrible people in our business. But the question I'm posing to my distinguished brothers is, when is it okay to walk off a show?
Assuming you've already accepted it, you're contracted, you're in the process, right?
Oh, yeah. You've already accepted the show, and it could be from the time you accept the show and you signed the contract to the opening night.
Yeah, wow, it's a tough one. I think almost never. I mean, I can't really, I'm sure there are situations where it would be appropriate, and I can certainly remember times where I was so frustrated or angry or, felt unappreciated or abused where I wanted to, but I never did. So I've never done it. That I can recall. But I think it would have to be something pretty egregious for me to sort of risk the stain on my reputation from doing something of that nature. But I guess there are times when it would be appropriate, but I have not experienced that.
I have 4 times that it's appropriate. As I start my journey into this hell. When do you walk off a show? You walk off a show when there's unsafe working conditions. Mm-hmm. You walk off a show when there's verbal or physical abuse. You walk off a show for non-payment of services. And number 4, you walk off a show when there's clear violation of the contract by the producer. Now, the other question here, which Stan is kind of, pussyfooting around, is it a good idea to walk off a show? And I think, if it were me, even at this stage of my career, I would call the union office and have a chat with the business agent and look for some guidance there. And I would try to find a way for some arbitration to happen. But, sometimes you have to walk off. You have to walk away from it. If you're sitting there and, I'm serious. I mean, if your life is in danger, if you're doing some stadium tour and things are just so unsafe that everybody's just lucky a major accident hasn't happened. We talked about this last week. And then I'll get off my soapbox. Verbal and physical abuse. There are predators out there. So I think there's a number of good reasons to leave a show. But it's a hard decision.
Yeah, I've just been fortunate. I've never been in a situation where I really had to kind of face that decision. I have, on the consulting side of things, turned down projects where it was clear that this was going to be not a good project to be involved in. There are signals, but usually that's before we would accept the job. And there's signals because there's a negotiation. Examples might be, we're really in a hurry and here's this unreasonable time schedule. Well, that's when mistakes happen. So there's that kind of thing. But safety is always an issue, for sure. Totally.
Well, and getting back to what we were talking about last week, I think when it reaches a point where you feel that you're starting to lose or your dignity or integrity is being attacked and you feel like you're being abused, then the red flags go up and you talk to the appropriate people. If it's not the director, hopefully it's not the director, I think you need to notify the director. And you also need to notify the production supervisors, the production manager, production director, and give it a chance to work itself out, because that has happened. I've seen that happen in shows I've been involved in, where all that person had to do was go to the appropriate person. Now, that once happened to my assistant, and then I went to the appropriate person, and it was dealt with immediately. And I would assume that if something like that happened again, that it would be dealt with immediately, or that person would be let go. And that's just the way it is now. First of all, you don't want to work in an unsafe working environment, right? You don't want, because it's safety. We're talking about mental safety and physical safety here. So you don't want to be in an abusive environment. And if someone allows that to continue, who's in the power to change it, then that person can be legally liable to make that change. So I think that's where you go.
Well, I think times are changing. This discussion about would you walk off a show 30 years ago or 50 years ago, people would say you're crazy. But I think we are a society that is no longer tolerant of any type of abuse that's going on around us. It takes a lot of courage, and that's another question also. But I think at some point you just say no to this nonsense that's going on around you. I think David's right. I think you do have to take it to some level of arbitration. Otherwise, I think it's unfair of you just simply to walk out the door on the break and not come back and leave your assistant sitting there.
Well, unless you feel unsafe. If you actually feel unsafe, yes, you need to leave the theater, and you need to tell people why you're leaving the theater.
If somebody asks you to do something that you know is dangerous in the moment.
Right, or something that's going to hurt your dignity or self-respect or whatever.
Yeah.
Something that's beyond the pale, and you just need to deal with it. I talked about this last week again, but it's true. You got to make a stand, and you got to tell people, because I guarantee you that company is going to be behind you, because everyone in that company knows that it could easily happen to them as well.
I guess the shows that I always have the most trouble with are shows that have been in some way edited. And, I did a production of Jesus Christ Superstar in which Judas goes to hell, and, there are demons pulling him down to hell. And I just thought, this is not what Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice had in mind. I had a really hard time sitting in the theater watching that.
I've got update news. Chicago's take on the classic bacon-wrapped, deep-fried danger dog is called the Francheezie, an all-beef hot dog split down the middle and filled with either American cheese, cheddar, or Velveeta before being deep-fried. Just like the classic Chicago-style hot dog, Francheezie is also served in a poppy seed bun.
Goes right for the arteries. I can just see it expanding in your arteries.
So Stan has our final listener question.
All righty. And Janet in Utah writes, can you discuss NDI and what that might mean for me? Well, Janet, I'm glad you're asked because I have been wanting to understand what this is. And I see it in my WYSIWYG software and I see it in these broadcast softwares that we're learning about to do live streaming of theater and blah, 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 blah. So I was curious too. And it stands for Network Device Interface. And basically, this was invented in about, 2015 by a company called NewTek. And basically, if you think about it, it started with broadcast stuff. Like if you want to plug a camera into your computer and you want it to be seen and you'd be able to manipulate it, you need like a capture card. You have to put this card in. And this is software that lets anything that is NDI compatible be shared over a network. Now, this doesn't sound like all that big a deal, but it sort of is because David has talked about before bandwidth, and we talk about streaming video and the quality of it, and this can transmit stuff at gigabyte speed. So what's interesting about it is you can actually, that if the device, the NDI capable device, can have a web-based interface. So for example, let's say David was nice enough to let me put a camera in his living room, and it was an NDI camera, and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to be home. I'm taking a trip on Monday. Can you keep an eye on my dog?" or whatever. Well, I could just log in to the internet with the IP address of his NDI capable camera, and I could have pan, tilt, zoom, whatever, spin around his house, take a look at things, see what's going on from remote controlled. So it's sort of a technology I think we're going to be hearing more and more about. I was looking to see if there was any NDI-capable lighting technology. There's some in the AVO-Lights world so far, what I've seen. So I think depending upon the kinds of digital processes we've been talking about for live performance down the road, we're seeing it in networks in venues for sure in the broadcast world, but I think we might start to see it on our computers and in our homes, on local networks, and then internet-connected devices. So keep your eye out there for NDI. It seems to be caught my attention, and I'm sharing that with you as well. So keep your eyes open, Janet. More on NDI coming.
Well, first of all, I have to say that there's no way in the world I would leave my dog for several days in the house alone, even with you watching it, okay? I'm sorry, watching Kaya. I mean, she needs a lot more attention than that. I'm going on a road trip, by the way, tomorrow. I'm going up the coast.
I sort of knew that somehow.
It's very, very cool. So, yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. Well, the rocky sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate us, the law firm of Flecht, Flocked, Flare and Glare, and their paralegal Snoosh will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and from deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more happenings in our crazy industry.
All of that and a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Have a great day, be safe, and be healthy. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everyone.